Why are there so many shows starring Muppets and dozens of movies too? They said they'd watch every one and they mean it. It's something that they've got to do. So now they pledge you a lifelong commitment. Muppets, Matthew and Sam.
Welcome to Commitment, the podcast where two friends have vowed to watch all things Muppets. I'm Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And this week, we are back in the warm embrace of one of our favorite shows because we are back to discuss another season of Fraggle Rock. It's early 1986, it's season 4, and it's the first 3 episodes titled Sprocket's Big Adventure, Wembley's Wonderful Whoopee Water, and Side Bottom Blues.
They say you can't go home, Matt, but we did.
We did it.
We left Muppet Babies and went back to the warm embrace.
Well, the Muppet Babies is right around the corner, Sam,
They're
so I
coming
wouldn't
back
get
to get
too comfortable.
They're coming back. We can't stay away from Muppet Babies, but
that's not all, because we also watched a music video, which was actually from 1985, for the song All Around the World, which is an Uncle Traveling Matt song.
just what everybody wanted. We were clamoring for it. People can't get enough of this guy.
People were smashing down doors at their local Tower Records.
I do think one of the biggest... Well, we'll learn that Fraggle Rock wasn't canceled. It was stopped by Jim Henson later in this episode. But I do think one big downfall of Fraggle Rock is that the face of the show has to be Uncle Matt, who is the worst character.
Yeah. And when Sam alludes to, we will talk about Jim Henson ending the show, that's because today we have a special guest joining us for the section of the podcast where we'll discuss the episode Sprocket's Big Adventure, and that is the writer of that episode, Sugith Varughese. But before we get to that, we do need to address something that we'll talk about a bit in that conversation with Sugith. But are there 4 seasons of this show? Are there 5 seasons of this show?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? If you look at Muppet Wiki, you'll see that the show is divided into 5 seasons, with the 4th airing in early 1986 and the 5th airing in early 1987. But if you read the Fraggle Rock, the Ultimate Visual History book, or look at episodes on Apple TV+, you'll only see 4 seasons mentioned. This is because Fraggle Rock was produced as 4 seasons of 24 episodes each. But HBO was like, hey, what if we drag this out a little bit longer and split things up to stretch the show into 5 broadcast seasons?
Something that isn't that unusual these days, you know?
No. And yeah, we talked about this a bit too at the end of season 3, because season 3 was produced as 24 episodes, but only broadcast as 22 episodes because the final 2 episodes of the season were supposed to be Wembley's Wonderful Whoopee Water and Side Bottom Blues that we're talking about today.
Interesting. Okay.
So season 4 that we're starting to talk about was also produced as 24 episodes. But what we're talking about as season 4 is the 13 episodes that aired in 1986, which includes 2 season 3 produced episodes and 11 season 4 produced episodes.
What were they doing over there? They were mixing and matching.
Yeah, and then the remaining 13 episodes were broadcast in the following year as season 5. So we'll talk about those around July of this year once we get to them in our chronological order.
Yeah. It's got to be annoying at best when you finish a show and send it to the network and then it airs and you're like, what the fuck did you guys do?
Well, especially if you're not aware that you're writing a season 4 finale.
Yeah.
Because it was just a middle of season 4 episode. So I'm very curious to see how season 4, as we're watching it, goes. And if it seems like it ends, or if it just feels like it sort of was another episode of Fraggle Rock.
I feel like we've had, maybe this is because of what you just said, but the seasons we've watched, the season finales haven't really been that particularly anything. And I don't think either Wembley's Wonderful Whoopee Water or Side Bottom Blues necessarily make for great season finales.
No, I was trying to think about that because nothing I read specifically said which one of those episodes was supposed to be the season finale. It just said that those 2 episodes were supposed to be the last 2 of the season. So theoretically, Side Bottom Blues was. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not necessarily
The
anything very
Water one is more season finale just because the peril is so large.
right.
But
But also worth mentioning, as I was reading through the Fraggle Rock, the Ultimate Visual History, I learned some things, Sam. We talk a bit about this in our conversation with Sugith, but in the book, it says that before they actually finished filming season 3, Jim Henson held a Future of the Fraggles meeting with the other sort of leads on the show.
scary thing to see pop up on your Google calendar.
Yeah. You're like, oh God, I
Oh,
have no
boy.
idea. Is this good? Bad? Are we doing 10
Yep.
more seasons? Are we ending today? So this was in March 1985. And this is where he told the fellow creators of the show that he had decided to go out on a high note and that the next season would be the last.
Huh. Okay.
Now, as Sujith said, we have no idea when the writers were told about that. It didn't seem like it was before they started working on the season, but it seems like Jim had decided before they started working on season 4 that that would be the case. In the book, Jocelyn Stevenson is quoted as saying that she saw this as an opportunity, like when she knew that this was going to be the last season, because she had approached every season with a question attached to it. So for her, season 1 was, what is this and where are we going? Season 2 was, what if we try this and this and this? Season 3 was, what stories can we tell with this series that you wouldn't be able to tell in any other?
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, and so she decided to approach season 4 with, what stories do we need to tell before it's over? So they all decided that the central theme for season 4 will be miscommunication between the species of Fraggle Rock. So I think
Settling beefs. There's some beef
exactly,
settled.
or at least seeing more interaction. Like, I think starting off with Sprocket coming down and interacting with every single species we see in Fraggle Rock is a great start to that theme.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much of this comes to fruition because obviously we haven't watched the last season yet, but they mentioned that heading into the last season, they wanted to try and change up the Uncle Traveling Matt segments, get Doc and Sprocket out of the workshop a bit, and mention adding a herd of cows to the Gorg Garden.
That one sounds hard.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Why do they want to do that?
It seems like they weren't entirely satisfied with the Gorgs as characters and wanted to make them a little bit more interesting. And so they wanted to make them like farmers more and herders.
I feel like the Gorgs are doing fine. I think that they're perfect. They're perfect in their imperfection, and we don't, we spend as much time with them as we need to. I don't need to see Junior herding cows. It sounds like everybody else had a good idea, and then somebody in the back room was like, what if we gave the Gorgs cows? Everybody's like, all right, I guess we got to write that down. We said we'd write down every idea.
It is like typed up, like they actually have like a copy of the memo from that meeting. So it's sort of a meeting recap. So it doesn't say, and everyone thought this was a bad idea. It just is like in there as an idea. There's also something that if you at first glance read it, you're like, what are you doing, guys? But then you realize what they wanted to do. One of the proposals for an episode is, it says something like, write an episode about racist jokes.
Oh.
And I was like, what? What does that mean? But what they mean it as is how to teach racist jokes are bad in Fraggle Rock. So a Gorg makes a Fraggle joke, a Fraggle makes a Doozer joke, etc.
Yeah.
And
they
again,
maybe worded it. They worded it strangely.
Yes. On an internal memo that maybe they didn't intend people to be reading 40 years later.
Yeah, right.
Where it just says make an episode about racist jokes. But yeah, I don't also know if that one is a thing, but we'll find out.
I feel like the Doozers sometimes do, like, a Doozer episode will be about like you're a little weirdos, and those are the ones where it's like, yeah, everybody has their own thing going on.
Yeah, we've seen each of the Fraggles sort of learn their lessons about the Doozers. They're all very judgmental the first time they have to interact with a Doozer, but they come around by the end of the episode.
Sometimes they forget next episode, though.
Absolutely. Like in our conversation with Sujith, we talk a little bit about the time when Moki and Junior became friends. And that's something where I remember that episode now that we talked about it. But it also is very easy to forget because Moki is terrified of Gorgs again.
I'm pretty sure we just had an episode where at the end, the Gorgs and the Fraggles were like, we're friends now. Remember that?
Yeah.
They're not friends now.
No, it's fully back to how it has been in the past.
They should have shown Junior like opening a closet and a bowling ball falling on his head like Fred Flintstone. Like at the end of that episode, it would be like, I hate those Fraggles. They put that bowling ball up there.
Well then, Sam, it's time to get into season 4 of Fraggle Rock. How about you tell the people what all we watched this week?
First, we watched a Fraggle Rock music video called All Around the World, which is basically a very majestic version of Uncle Matt's newer theme song. He had a different theme song at some point.
Yeah, this
right?
is from season 3 onward.
And now it's a more like whimsical theme song. You know which one I'm talking about. This one has lyrics though, and it also doubles as sort of a best of clip collection of Uncle Matt's travels in outer space. Just a real earworm. Also, I'm going to hear the Fraggles singing that every time I hear the theme song from now on. Then we watched Sprocket's Big Adventure, original air date January 6th, 1986. Sprocket has had just about enough of Doc not believing him that there's a whole magical world filled with furry little troublemaking creatures right on the other side of the workshop wall. So he digs his way through a hole in the floor that Doc has made to fix some pipes and into Fraggle Rock to find some definitive proof. As he wanders around Fraggle Rock looking for Gobo, Sprocket can't seem to help himself but smash into every doozer construction he runs across, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake that draws the attention of Fraggle and Doozer alike. The Fraggles are worried about some sort of new creature running amok in Fraggle Rock, while the Doozers, on the other hand, are impressed with Sprocket's gift for demolition. They capture Sprocket and tell him that they want him to keep smashing old buildings so that they can build new ones. However, it quickly becomes clear to Cotterp and Doozer that Sprocket is lost and lonely, and since she doesn't recognize him or what kind of creature he is, she figures he must be from the Gorg Garden, so she takes him up there. Meanwhile, Gobo's deduced that the destructive monster that they're looking for is Sprocket and tells the gang that they have to help him get home. They use Boober's newfound dog allergy to track Sprocket to the Gorg Garden, where they find Junior, who's trying to catch Sprocket, laying in wait. Junior grabs Gobo, and Sprocket, who at this point is hanging out with the Trash Heap gang, hears their struggle. He rushes out to help his friend, and he woofs at Junior until he lets Gobo go, and they all scamper back into the rock. Gobo leads Sprocket back to the hole that he dug to get in, and before he leaves, Sprocket explains that he was just there to find evidence to prove that the Fraggles exist to Doc. So Gobo gives him a little bracelet as proof, which Sprocket then presents to Doc. Doc, however, thinks the bracelet is a washer that Sprocket brought him to fix their plumbing, so he uses it as such and doesn't take time to consider this bracelet, I guess, that, doesn't seem like the most definitive proof to me. But, and the moral of this episode is don't fall in a hole and get lost, maybe. Next up was Wimbley's Wonderful Whoopee Water, air date January 13th, 1986. Wimbley swears that he can hear some kind of liquid gurgling behind the walls of Fraggle Rock, but no one else can hear it, and they all think that he's nuts. So Wimbley starts digging into the walls to prove them wrong. And wouldn't you know it, up from the ground comes a bubbling crude, but it's not oil, it's carbonated strawberry-flavored water that, once the other Fraggles get a taste of, they all go gaga for. They start drinking the water and partying and quickly discover that not only is the water delicious, it also has some sort of property that keeps them from having to go to sleep. So their productivity and party capacity shoots through the roof, and they all hail Wimbley as a hero. But there's something Wimbley hasn't told them. Inside the rocks, he can also hear a second, scarier sound, and as they drink more water, the sound gets louder and louder. He wants to tell everybody, but all the adoration is too sweet to give up, so he keeps his mouth shut. A few days later, the Fraggles have gotten together to give Wimbley the key to Fraggle Rock when a giant fissure opens at the fizzy water spring and it swallows Gobo right up. Wimbley knows he's responsible, so he volunteers himself to be lowered into the bottomless pit to save Gobo, which he does, but afterwards he tells everyone that he was keeping his concerns about the water from them, and that he thinks it would be best if everyone forgot about the fizzy water for now. The Fraggles tell him that they still think he's brave and cool anyway, and that's that. The moral: I think this episode must be about oil and global warming. I can't think of what else it could be about. And also, more generally, I guess it's sometimes things are too good to be true. Meanwhile, up in outer space, Doc is sick of how expensive tomatoes are, so he tries to grow his own. But the cost of setting up his grow operation quickly spirals out of control, and he realizes, to quote Doc himself, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Finally, Side Bottom Blues, air date January 20th, 1986. The Fraggles are going out to the Gore Garden to play Follow the Leader, and Wimbley really wants Boober to come with them and have some fun for once in his miserable life. He finally convinces Boober to join them and goes off to tell Gobo, only to find that Gobo has canceled the trip because Junior has set up a bunch of traps and is waiting and watching the hole for the Fraggles to come out. Gobo keeps calling Junior a big goof as he is explaining this, and that someone is going to ruin their fun, which Boober overhears, but he thinks that they're talking about Boober being the fun ruining goof. So he runs back to his room to sulk, and he falls asleep and he meets Sidebottom, who, if you remember, is his fun side that he keeps suppressed. Sidebottom convinces Boober to let him take over and show his friends that he is indeed fun. And Boober is so down in the dumps that he agrees to this plan. Sidebottom goes to the other Fraggles and tell them that he is going to lead Follow the Leader this time, and runs out to the Gore Garden, where he springs all the traps. He draws Junior Gorg's attention and then promptly hypnotizes him into thinking he's a Fraggle too. And it's all fun and games for a while, but Junior is in the middle of stewing some bonkleberries, and Wimbley is deathly allergic to bonkleberries. And all the merrymaking, a bonkleberry falls on Wimbley and knocks his ass out. The Fraggles turn to Boober, who they know as the resident doctor of Fraggle Rock, to help them, but Boober is currently Sidebottom, and Sidebottom doesn't know anything about medicine. And also, by the way, Junior is snapping out of his hypnotism, and he's pissed. Seeing as the situation calls for a more serious approach, the tables are turned and Sidebottom has to go to Boober to beg for help. Boober takes back over, cures Wimbley, and realizes in running away from the Gorg that Gobo was calling Junior a goof the whole time. So all is well. The moral: having fun is fun, but you can't always have fun. Sometimes your friends almost die from a bonkleberry allergy if you have too much fun. And also, Boober was right to be scared all the time. Only really bad things can result from having fun. Meanwhile, up in outer space, Miss Ardath has convinced Doc to steal valor and put on a Navy uniform so that they can convince a bunch of visiting sea captains that Doc is a retired sailor so that they will be impressed and eat dinner at the end. It's a stupid plan, but it actually works, and I don't really think Doc learns anything particularly actionable from this lesson. And he also has impersonated a veteran.
He does say that you should be honest and not pretend to be something you're not.
But he doesn't, probably because he knows they'll kick his ass, he doesn't tell the sea captains that he's not a retired sailor.
He doesn't say whether or not he does do that. He says he reveals the honest truth that he gets seasick.
Sure.
He doesn't say whether or not
Part of the honest truth.
Yeah. I feel like the captain part would probably come out that you're not a real sea captain if you get seasick. But
I think they would kick his ass if they found out. And he knew that. And so he kept that part under his hat. His cute little sailor hat.
His cute little hat.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this music video real quick, because there's not much to say that you didn't already say, other than that maybe it was released as a 45, but in the UK only.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
On one side, the song. On the other side, the instrumental version.
Just in case you want to wander around and do stupid stuff.
Yeah,
now you have
who
a
doesn't?
background track. I'll stick some cookie dough in my ears and misunderstand everything. The fun game that kids play.
People being like, oh, well, what are you doing? You're like, did you not hear the song? Clearly, I'm in Uncle Traveling Matt mode.
Don't you see the pith helmet?
We got all the video toaster effects on this one, folks. This is 80s, 80s, 80s. It's like it's like the 80s was trying to creep its way into Fraggle Rock, and they refused. They wouldn't let it. And so they were like, this is our outlet.
This will push it over the edge. Yeah, it's like Jim was standing over the shoulder of the person editing the video, being like, ooh, what's that button do? Ooh, what's that button do?
What if we just push all the transition buttons like and in order? So let's fade, like flip, turns into a ball for some reason. But it's a lot of random quotes from the show turned into lines of a song.
Okay.
And I don't hate it, but I think it might be the worst Fraggle Rock song we've ever heard.
I was thinking the same thing while I was listening to it as well. It doesn't live up to the same standard as almost every other song. There's probably songs that have annoyed me a little bit more, like some Junior songs.
Right.
But this one is worse than those songs.
And yeah, I don't think it's worse than, some Muppet Babies songs.
Oh
I,
God,
th- I
yeah.
think if we had heard this and this is all Fraggle Rock was, we'd probably adjust. But
Uh-huh.
because we've heard the wonder of Fraggle Rock music, this, in stark contrast, was a bit much.
It is catchy, and I do like. I
Yeah.
like they really get into this rendition of the song, with just like the added instruments, and it definitely has you swaying a little bit. But you know,
It's
it's
very
still this
80s.
song, and it's still all about Matt. So
Hey, come
who
on.
needs it?
So then it's time to discuss our first episode, and this discussion will be a little different than our normal episode discussions as we discuss the January 6th, 1986 episode, Sprocket's Big Adventure. But the reason this episode discussion is going to be a little different is because today we are joined by the writer of this episode, Sugith Varughese.
Hi, Sue. Just how are you?
Hey guys, great to see you again.
Yes, it's
You
great to have you
too.
back.
So I guess right off the bat, how does it feel to revisit this episode?
Well, in prep for doing this podcast, I watched the episode again, which was probably that's the first time I've seen the episode since it was first on TV in 1986.
Wow.
So it was a revelation, to see. Wow, did we really do this show? It's so good. It was a really interesting episode in my history of writing. I wrote 10 of the 96 Fraggle Rock episodes. And as I mentioned the last time, we didn't have a writing room or anything like that, like they do
Right.
now. Each writer was responsible for their script, every word from start to finish. So I anyway had a real sense of ownership of my script. I mean, obviously it was Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell's series, and they were the ones who ran that part of it, and I was plugging into it as a writer to create a particular story for that show. But within that mandate, it was my script, my story, my thing, and so to watch it again 40 plus years later, it was almost like watching a dream, because I went, did I really do this? No, it was something. I think I mentioned the last time we spoke that the process of writing Fraggle Rock was, I would craft some kind of pitch for an episode and take it in to see Jerry Jewell and Jocelyn Stevenson and Larry Merkin, who was the producer. And I'd sent it to them in advance, so they read, this one-page description of an episode, and then we'd go in and talk about it. And especially in those early seasons, in the early episodes, what I pitched was often not what I ended up writing, because they brought so much to the reaction to my pitch that in the room we would come up with something almost completely different than what I had gone in with. And that's what I ended up writing. Sprocket's Big Adventure was the different one. For one thing, I had now been contracted to do X number of episodes a season. Instead of being one by one, I knew that I was going to be doing 3 episodes. And so I went in, and this was before we were up and running to do season 4. I actually had to go to Larry Merkin's house, and Jerry Jewell had flown in from California, and he was camped out in Larry's home office, and the two of them were there, and I went in to pitch. And this was the first time I went in and I said to them, it's season 4. I didn't know it was going to be the last season, by the way. It's season 4, and I think Sprocket should go into Fraggle Rock. And that's all I said. And Jerry and Larry looked at each other, and it was like you could literally see light bulbs going off above their heads. And they both had big smiles on their faces, and they said, "You're right." And that was it. That was my pitch. I didn't have to, we didn't really talk about it. We didn't massage it. We didn't do any of the stuff that we had done in the past. It was probably the first time that I went in with a pitch for an episode and walked out with the same story to end up writing as my marching orders. it was great that way. I felt, like I said, because the responsibility was always on the writer anyway. This was the reason that I actually really felt a great responsibility on this one, because it really was my story idea. And now the hard part began, because how do you write an episode of Fraggle Rock where the main character doesn't talk, doesn't have any language skills, really? I mean, Sprocket was a great character to write, because he actually communicated, and Doc kind of understood him in
Right.
terms of translating dog barking into English, and they could communicate. So it's not true. We did script Sprocket's quote unquote dialogue.
Yeah.
It just wasn't English. But it was, you'd write something like Sprocket barks in a way that then Doc would answer, no, Schimmelfinny doesn't have a monkey wrench, or whatever he was translating for our benefit as an audience. So that was hard enough when it was just three little Doc and Sprocket segments in an episode. But now I had Sprocket in Fraggle Rock, and hopefully I had to have him encounter all three species of Fraggle Rock in
Mhm.
Fraggle Rock. I had to have him encounter Fraggles and Doozers and Gorgs, none of whom spoke Sprocketish. So I didn't even have the ability to have them translate, like Doc would translate back to us what
Mhm.
Sprocket said. So, and I don't remember whose idea this was, but Gobo teaches Sprocket how to say his name. And so he says it in a kind of dog bark.
Uh-huh.
And that was the one thing that Sprocket could do communicatively that at least Gobo understood. So I had that to work with. And I can't remember whether that was invented for this episode or whether that happened prior, but I knew I had that to work with. And other than that, uh, it was going to be a real interesting scripting exercise to figure out how I could have him encounter all three species and be able to have a communication with each of them without them knowing what he's barking.
Mhm.
And so that was the challenge of writing it. And when I watched it, I went, well, kind of worked.
Yeah, it's very cute. The Gobo moments, especially because that's something we had not seen prior. We had not seen, especially Gobo trying to teach Sprocket how to say his name. We've never
Uh-huh.
seen that, and so one,
Yeah,
it was
so I think I invented that for this episode, and I don't know how much it was used subsequently, but it was they were this was it was the show had reached a certain point in its evolution, season 4, right? So we were able to push the franchise a bit in terms of, okay, Gobo and Sprocket can actually do this now, or Sprocket can actually go into Fraggle Rock. That was a kind of an unwritten rule up to that point where that was never going to happen. And
Mhm.
we never really answered the question, well, wait a minute. If Sprocket knows they're Fraggles and silly creatures don't, well, how does traveling Matt go through the world and and not people wonder, hey, wait a minute, you're not human, are you?
That's a great question.
But we
Yeah.
never answered that question. But so within the that part of the show, within the Fraggle Rock part of the show, this was a kind of groundbreaking development that we were going to enable Sprocket to meet the other creatures of Fraggle Rock besides Gobo, for one thing, and to be able to have some kind of communication happen between them when they didn't speak Sprocket.
I think Sprocket does seem much more like dog-like and sad in this episode, especially when he's in Fraggle Rock, because he does have Doc usually, like you said, who like understands him
Well,
so
that's the
well.
that's the jeopardy that we needed
Yeah.
to put him in. I needed to make him in trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just have him go into Fraggle Rock and not worry about him. The key to writing a story is that you want to create a situation where the audience is worried. And whether it's a comedy or a drama or horror or whatever,
Mhm.
that's what the audience wants to do, whether they know it or not, is they want to worry. And so I needed to make sure that they were worried about Sprocket. So Sprocket's trapped in Fraggle Rock. He can't find his way back. He doesn't. The only person he knows is Gobo, so all he can do is go, ooh, ooh. I mean, that's very, poignant, right?
Mhm.
And he gets captured by Doozers. We had that. I remember writing it that he gets, trapped like Gulliver,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in Gulliver's Travels, so that he's splayed out on the ground with ropes tying him down to the ground like Gulliver was in Gulliver's Travels. And it was fun to see how they executed it. I don't know if it quite had the impact that I wanted it to have, because I really wanted ropes all over him and
Mhm.
thousands of doozers surrounding him. But
There's a lot of doozers. I did
there's a
notice.
lot of doozers in that scene. Yeah. So they, it was pretty good. I don't know if the audience got the inside joke about it, reflective of Gulliver's Travels, but maybe.
I did.
And and then with the looking for Gobo and meeting the Fraggles, and the Fraggles being afraid of Sprocket, and so there was always this attempt to escalate the action, keep the audience worried, hope that Sprocket finds Gobo, and what's going to happen then? How is Sprocket going to get back? And remember that Sprocket's whole being is wanting to prove to Doc that Fraggles are real, right? And so now he knows that there's this whole world underneath the workshop, and then at the end when he takes that
The friendship
the,
bracelet.
the bracelet
Yeah.
to prove that and Doc uses it as a plumbing washer. It was a nice little
Yeah.
that we still keep that going, that Doc still doesn't believe it.
When he gave him that bracelet, I was like, that obviously is not going to work. Doc is not going to be. That's not going to convince anybody. He should have dragged Gobo back out there. So look,
Just
I
Well,
Sprocket grabs
you
Gobo
know,
by the neck.
Yeah.
that would really be violating some of the
Yeah.
ethos of Fraggle Rock, I think. But I was really proud of the fact that I got to really push the
Mhm.
franchise envelope in terms of what Fraggle Rock was up to that point, by being able to send Sprocket into the underground world.
Did you watch the show as it came on? Like, had you seen every episode up until this point?
I would watch the episodes every week when it was on TV.
Yeah.
The first time, but that was the last time too, for me.
Right. Right.
Did you know you were writing the season premiere when you were doing this episode?
I didn't know it was going to be the season premiere when I started writing it, but I learned fairly early on that they wanted it to be the first one. Though my memory is a bit vague, because it has been 40, it was 1985 when we actually shot it. And I don't know if it was the first one of the season made, but it was
Right.
the first one that, like, it was meant to be the first one, the season premiere.
It serves as a great premiere with all the, you're introducing Marjorie, the Gorgs, the Doozers. Like, in season 3, there's some episodes where, we don't see Marjorie for a while, or we don't see the Gorgs even. And so to have everyone back in one episode serves as a really nice refresher for the
Well,
people.
and that's exactly one of the subtexts of the episode, was to, because Sprocket needs to meet everybody, so the audience gets to meet everybody again too. And so every character has their moment with Sprocket, and every world, every species has their moment with Sprocket, and that was deliberate, particularly since it was going to be the season premiere. That's why I can't remember at what point I knew it was going to be the season premiere, but I think it was fairly early on in the writing process, so that I knew, okay, there's a dramatic and also a sort of logistical reason for him to meet everybody.
Was there any difference in writing like a later season episode versus when you first started back in season 1? Because the Beast of Blue Rock was your first episode, and at this point you've written another 6 episodes since that one. So did it feel different approaching a last season episode versus a first season episode?
Well, it was. I had more confidence. I had more experience. I had more. I knew sort of what I was doing in a way that informed the writing. As I said, I don't think we knew it was the last season. Jim hadn't told us. If he had even if he had made up his mind that it was the last season at that point, I don't think he had. I don't think he decided to finish it off until about halfway through producing season 4. And you can see that happen with the ending of season 4, the last 4 or 5 episodes have that kind of season or not series ending component to them when you watch
Mhm.
them, because we all knew then that that was
Right.
going to be our last episode, and we wanted to sort of do our each individual writer got to sort of sum up their take on Fraggle Rock with their last episode. But at this point, when writing the first one for season 4, which is what I thought this was, I just thought it was the season premiere episode. I didn't think it was the final season yet. So I sort of thought we were refreshing the show, and sort of taking it to a new level because it's season 4, time to do that. And so that's where I was coming from in writing it.
So that was a Jim decision and not an HBO decision, or you don't?
It was a Jim decision
Okay,
to
interesting.
to finish the show.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh no,
okay.
HBO, CBC, they would have loved
They love
to
it.
keep going, but Jim, I remember when he announced it to us. I went up to him afterwards and I said, "So how come you're in?" Because I was heartbroken, to be honest. How come you're ending the show? And he looked at me and he said, "It's time."
That's what he did with Muppet Show too, right? He just was like, "We're done with this now."
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever canceled the Muppets
Yeah.
except except ABC
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
occasionally. But nobody ever canceled Jim Henson. That was all Jim's decision. Yeah, for sure.
You talked last time about about being on set for the filming of these episodes. Do you have any particular memories from the filming of this episode?
Not that stand out other than I remember, well, it was Eric Till who was directing it. I loved Eric. Eric is was actually a really fine film feature film director from the UK. Like that's where he started his career. And then after moving to Canada, he started directing more television. For directors, Fraggle Rock was a plum job. Besides Jim, it was Canadian directors. There were no other Muppet or US directors on the show that I recall. And George Bloomfield directed a lot of them. And he was, one of these amazing guys who, like, it was so much fun being directed, having your show directed by George, because he was just fun. He was entertaining. He was he could have been an actor. He was so funny, and we just had a good time. Eric was similar in that he see, the thing is, the directors knew that there wasn't a lot you can do cinematically
Mm-hmm.
on Fraggle Rock. I mean, sure, you can move the camera down the caves and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
but it really was about the mechanics of making the puppets work for
Yeah.
television more than cool shots.
Right.
And of course, you don't direct Jerry Nelson's performance. You don't direct Richard Hunt's acting. Like
Uh-huh.
they're masters of what they're doing. So that's not what the directors were hired to do. And the ones that got to do it more than once didn't do that. They knew better than to get in the way of the Muppet performers and to try and make Dolce Vita when it was Fraggle Rock. Like
Uh-huh.
they were good stewards of the series, and Eric was like that. He understood what his role as the director was, and his job was to make the script as good as it could be and not get in the way of the script. Like, you don't want a director adding a lot of stuff so that I have to end up cutting things from the parts of the script that were left to shoot just so that he can have this long tracking shot that he wanted, or whatever. So, there's a real collaboration between Eric and myself on
Mm-hmm.
this episode to make sure that my script stays intact, stays well dramatized, and that the puppeteers get to do their thing without being, getting in the way. And Eric was really good at that. And so, I look at Eric's directing on this episode, and it feels really seamless.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like there were any hiccups in what I wrote, what I hoped the show would be. You know, I have fantasies about more ropes on that doozer scene, but other than that, it was a well executed episode.
I think that's my favorite Doozer scene maybe that we've seen in the whole show. And that's one of my favorite songs that they sing too. But I just love when they're all like, when it seems like that he's in trouble and they're like, we just want you to smash more stuff.
Well, and the again, it was like a reintroduction of the Doozers and what they were about.
Right.
So it was kind of a Doozer theme song
Yeah.
that
That's true.
they got to sing.
That's
But the
true.
other song that I found really interesting was that song when he first enters, and it's
Yeah.
not Fraggles, it's all these cave creatures
Yeah.
that are singing,
They're mean to
and that
him.
was a real breakthrough number because all of those are the Canadian background puppeteers.
Mm.
Oh.
They're not the Muppet, Dave Goltz and Karen
Right.
Duvall,
Singing.
it's not them. It's all the unsung Canadian background puppeteers who,
That's great.
didn't get to do characters with names, except once in a while. I remember there were a few special characters for one episode that a Canadian background puppeteer would get promoted to
Right.
be able to do, because they were very talented. They were, good puppeteers in their own right. They just weren't
Mhm.
Henson puppeteers. So I think that was a real thrill for them to be able to be so featured. They weren't just in the background waving a fern, but they actually were, playing characters, singing in that sequence. So that was again a kind of an upgrade.
That's a really interesting part too, because I feel like the Fraggle Rock is being so hostile to Sprocket in a way that we don't really see very often. They're just like,
Well, yeah, and that's what I was trying to do, which is that it's a loving and benign and happy place for Fraggles, Doozers, and Gorgs,
yeah,
but not for
kind of weird and
something
creepy.
who isn't one of them.
Yeah.
It's a scary place, and it
Yeah.
needs to be a scary place for this to have jeopardy. Without jeopardy, there's no story.
Yeah, even when the Doozers do have him tied up, at first that even feels threatening because they're saying like, "We don't want your apology, we want you." And
Yeah.
you're like, "What are they
Commercial
going to
break.
do with Sprocket?"
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, he's useful to them. He helps them clear out their construction so they can keep building eternally. And I don't think he quite understands how
Yeah.
useful he is. But the Doozers love him.
Well, that's exactly the sort of point of Fraggle Rock, is that misunderstanding of species
Mm.
motives, right? And so you think Sprocket thinks the Doozers are a threat to his well-being, and they're actually worshiping him.
Mhm.
Yeah, that he's an all-powerful force that they never could have imagined
Yeah.
could come along and help them.
They also love to worship all powerful forces. They have done that a couple other times too.
Well, there is a cult-like quality to Doozers,
Definitely.
which
Yeah.
is it's a benign cult because they don't have a leader, but they, they're ants, right? It's sort of the Fraggle equivalent of ants, right?
So after watching it for the first time in almost 40 years, aside from, the Gulliver's Travels ropes, are there any parts that stood out to you as something you'd do differently now if you were going to write it today?
No, like I said the last time I was here, it's hard to believe that I actually wrote them in the first place, because it's been so long, and at the time it was such a amazing experience to just be in that creative world, and it was Jim and Jerry and the Muppets, and it was just this amazing thing, and I at the time I was pinching myself. So now when I look back 40 years later, having not seen it in 40 years, again, it's hard to believe I wrote it. I said, really, I wrote that? Wow. It's almost like a dream. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
almost, it is a dream. Like, it's like the best dream ever. It was a dream job at the time, and seeing what I did creatively. That's the one thing that I not regret, but it gives myself pause, because I was so young. I didn't realize that creatively it doesn't get better than this. I thought this was, this was great, and it was always going to be this way. Whether I move on to the next show or whatever, it'll be like this. And it wasn't. This was I peaked then, right? In terms of I didn't get to work with Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell ever again, and that was something I'll never be able to replicate. And I've worked with a lot of people since then on a lot of different things, but those 4 seasons, it's something that I almost can't believe I got the chance to do.
Out of those 10 episodes that you wrote, do you have any standout favorites?
My favorite one is Home is Where the Trash Is, because
Yeah.
that one was probably the closest to my own heart in terms of what it was about and what I was saying. I felt that I was saying something only I could say. It was something only I could have written. I mean, I feel that way for all of them, and I think that's my rule in writing, which is, write the story only you can tell. Because if anybody could, then why are you bothering? So, finding the specificity in your voice to tell the story only you can tell, even though it's a Fraggle Rock story.
Yeah.
Within the world of Fraggle Rock, I always felt I was telling stories only I could tell, and which is why, and I think it's true for all the writers. I can tell watching, oh, that's a David Young episode. Oh, that's a Laura Phillips episode. Oh, that's a BP Nickel episode. Oh, that's one of mine. And part of it is that I can recognize themes, or I can recognize character favorites, things like that we were not only allowed but encouraged to have. I mean, that's how secure Jerry and Jim were about their creation. They didn't want us to generify what we were doing and make it like what Jerry did. They wanted my Fraggle Rock story, because it was always going to be Fraggle Rock. But to make it specific for me made it was just going to be better than if it was just this generic. That's why there was no group writing. There was no, passing through each other's computers or typewriters and all that stuff, which is what happens now with television. That the person who ends up getting the screen credit is often not the person or people who wrote the script. Right. And, I guess that's progress, but, or maybe easier to get the series done in that way, but it's not as satisfying creatively. And at least I don't think it is. I mean, maybe it is in other ways. I don't want to talk myself out of any jobs here, producers listening. But the beauty of working on a Jim Henson and Jerry Jewell show was that I got to be the author of those scripts. So Home is Where the Trash Is was one of my favorites because it was an homage to Samuel Beckett. I loved Beckett when I was in drama school. I had acted in Waiting for Godot, and I directed Endgame as my thesis project when I was in university. So I had a big halo around Beckett, and so if you watch Home is Where the Trash Is, and particularly if you were able to read the script of Home is Where the Trash Is, I think you would see the Beckettian echoing. And in fact, when George Bloomfield directed it, and it's the only time he called me after he finished reading it, he says, "You're doing Beckett, aren't you?" I'm glad.
When Philo and Gunge are on that like blasted landscape with just like the scraggly trees, I definitely have watched like adaptations of that play where that is very much
exactly. That was totally stolen from Waiting for Godot.
Yeah. One thing I really love about your scripts is that you explore relationships that are like you bring the characters places they haven't been before, and you introduce characters to each other that have never met before.
Well, the Great Radish Caper is that, Moki and Junior work together.
Yeah.
Right. That was again a precedent-setting, envelope-pushing decision, right? Rather than being at odds and running away from Junior, she had the courage to say, we got to find Geraldine, the radish, and what happened to
his life in the first place, though, right?
Huh?
From what I think she kind of ruined his life in the first place. So from what I remember.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why she felt responsible to try and fix things.
Yeah.
But but that's I'm glad you noticed, because that certainly was one of the things that I always tried to bring to it, which was redefining some of these relationships in
Yeah.
a way that took them to a new place that they didn't expect to go. And they may not go back there after my episode, but
Hmm.
they got that moment where they were exposed to something or somebody in a way that they didn't plan and expect. And that sort of is about where I come from,
Yeah.
right? As creatively is not taking the face value as a given,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And I think it comes from my particular, racial and ethnic background and all these kinds of things that I bring to the party, which I wasn't thinking about consciously when I was writing Fraggle Rock. And I wasn't hired on Fraggle Rock as a diversity writer. Or, it wasn't like that back. Diversity hadn't even been invented back then. It wasn't. I mean, I remember when Jim met me, he had come to town. I think he was directing an episode or something. And so he was meeting all the people that had come onto the show that he hadn't met before. And Jim was very good, because when he got introduced to somebody, he would always repeat their name. So then Jerry introduced me, and this is Sugith Varughese, who's going to be one of our writers. And he went, okay. Because he didn't mess up my name.
Oh no.
So there was no,
Oh boy.
there was no mandate for me to be writing anything
Right.
that was specific to my racial or ethnic background or anything like that. But looking back on what I ended up writing, there's certain themes that come through that I don't think would have come through in one of David Young's scripts, because he doesn't come from that particular experience, right?
Right.
So that was the seed of where I was coming from.
Yeah, I think the best episodes of Fraggle Rock do all have like a very personal, like painful moment in them. I feel like being stuck
Well,
in the
Laura's
cave and
scripts
almost
were like
barfing.
that a lot too. Laura wrote Wembley's
Right.
Egg. Laura wrote Fraggle Wars, and
Yeah.
so she was writing big
Really dark
themes,
stuff, kind of. Yeah.
and real stakes, because she's a really passionate, deeply feeling person, and those kinds of things, war and pestilence, and those things mattered to her. And David Young's scripts, I think, also had sort of large themes, though not political. I think Laura's were the more political ones, but David's were the more emotionally large themes. Mine were kind of the outsider,
Yeah.
learning to getting to belong.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I come from personally. And I think that underlying theme was fueling so many of my Fraggle scripts.
Well, we've got 2 more of your episodes left to discuss on our podcast. We've got Boober Gorg and Ring Around the Rock. And without spoiling anything too much about those episodes, what do we have to look forward to with
Well,
those
Boober
episodes?
Gorg was, again, one of those envelope pushing scripts, because the most terrified Fraggle of them all, it's like a Freaky Friday. He thinks he is going to be the most terrifying creature in Fraggle Rock. And Ring Around the Rock was my farewell to the show. And it's a Gorg show, which is what I loved writing Gorg scenes and Gorg episodes. And so that was my every writer got their last script to say goodbye to the
That's
show,
great.
and that was my farewell.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting to those later on this year. And yeah, I just have to say thank you again for joining us to discuss this. This has been fantastic.
Oh, my pleasure. Like I said, I if you hadn't asked me on the podcast, I wouldn't have watched. It might have been another 40 years before I saw an old Fraggle Rock episode of mine. So I'm just grateful for that.
They're very good. You should check them out.
I guess I should remind myself what I did 40 years ago.
Home is Where the Trash is an extremely good episode, and Wander McMooch is like one of my favorite Muppets ever. So anyone.
Well, I mean, the Wander McMooch, I'm very proud of that character, but I don't think Jim was happy because he felt it. That's one of the envelope pushing things that I was trying, that I did. And that level of villainy was, I think he felt it was too much.
Mm.
So we never went there again on the show.
I think he does a good job in making the Gorgs more relatable. Like, you need somebody really nasty, and then the Gorgs just seem like, yeah, they're just the
Well,
Gorgs.
the Gorg jeopardy is just total misunderstanding.
Yes,
But
definitely.
Wander McMooch isn't. There's no misunderstanding there. He's
He knows
out
what
to
he's
get 'em.
doing.
He'll put a dog collar on you and walk you around.
And so
He's
it was a worthy experiment. And Bob did Bob Stutt performed Wander McMooch, and he did a fantastic job puppeteering him. And I'm proud of it, but I know that it was probably a character that, in retrospect, they didn't feel was Fraggle-ish enough to
Yeah.
get a return episode. So
Yeah.
It
I'm
is
glad I
rare
got
to
to
have a
go.
character outside of one of our main group of species. And so to bring in another character does raise a lot of questions about, like, okay, what is this guy's
Yeah,
deal? What is he
yeah,
bringing to the show?
yeah. So I mean, I'm glad that I got to experiment, and I'm glad they went for it. And I mean, that's the kind of show it was.
Well, again, a huge thanks to Sugith for joining us today. Is there anything you want people to check out, or places that you want people to follow you?
Well, you can follow me on Instagram at Sugith Varughese, or X at Sugith Varughese, or Threads at Sugith Varughese. I think if they're interested, besides writing, I have another life as an actor. And I was on a series called Transplant, which still airs on NBC, and season 4 will come to NBC eventually. And season 4 just finished airing around in Canada and the rest of the world, so that's available. And I have a new disaster movie coming out
Ooh.
Oh,
April 1st. It'll start streaming on Tubi and Pluto TV, and it's on Amazon Freevee, and it's on Roku Player, called Super Ice Cyclone. And I play the crusty head meteorologist who doesn't believe that there actually could be a killer cyclone.
oh no.
Oh, no. I don't
I
have
don't
high
have a
hopes for
good-
your character living
Don't
throughout
feel
that
like
movie.
You're gonna make it through the movie.
No spoilers.
Oh no, I don't want to see my friend Sue just get killed by the super ice cyclone.
Well, we don't know that happens yet,
I was gonna
Sam,
say,
but
I'm not giving anything away. You'll have to watch that
Stop
movie.
it.
gotta go watch it. Great. Well, everyone definitely go check that out and give Sugith a follow on all the various platforms. Thank you again, Sugith, for joining us today.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you.
guys. Always a pleasure.
So huge thanks again to Sugith for joining us during this conversation. Sam, you got any other thoughts that we didn't get to in that chat about Sprocket's Big Adventure?
I thought it was a really good episode. I loved one of the things I loved the scene that I loved the most, that I almost was maybe my favorite scene in Fraggle Rock, or one of them, is when they find out that Boober is allergic to Sprocket, and that they can track Sprocket that way. And it's all of the Fraggles, and they're all kind of bringing their own like attitude to the situation, and then they like pick up. So it's cool to have all those characters together, which you don't.
Yeah.
It's like rare kind of also to have all 5 of them in one scene talking to each other. But then also the puppetry is really cool, where they're like pulling Boober around, and they like all pick him up together, and they like start pointing his nose. It just feels like such a great, like we said in this interview, it's such a great microcosm of everything that Fraggle Rock is, just like distilled into, like, if you were going to tell people to watch Fraggle Rock, maybe this wouldn't be the first one, but this would be like the third one, because you want to establish a little bit of that Sprocket's not going in there all the time. But this is just like a great episode of Fraggle Rock, I would say.
Yeah, and I think specifically that moment that you mentioned is one of my favorite moments as well, because as soon as Sprocket was in Fraggle Rock and Boober saw him, I was a little afraid we were going to have a case of like mistaken identity,
Yeah.
where Boober was just going to be like, "There's a hairy beast in the
Right.
rock. It's
But
dangerous."
He's seen that guy before, for sure.
Right. And he immediately tells the other Fraggles, "Hey, it's the hairy monster from outer space. He's in Fraggle Rock." And I love that there's not any confusion around this.
Yeah.
And Gobo immediately is like, "Oh, he's
gotta
our
help him."
friend.
Yeah.
We
I
have
like
to
that
help him
too.
before he gets into trouble." Like, he
Yeah.
doesn't think about Sprocket causing trouble. He thinks about Sprocket getting hurt or getting
Yeah.
into his own trouble, and he wants to help him.
Because it really is interesting how threatening Fraggle Rock feels, especially at the beginning when Sprocket's running through. And it almost feels like a labyrinth scene or something where there's just like a bunch of little creeps screaming at this guy who's like, ooh, where do I go? And it's just not, it like reframes it so well that this place is like weird if you're not from there. And I do feel bad about saying that the theme was don't fall in a hole, because really, like, Sugith explaining the theme being like being a stranger in a strange land, that's so, I don't know, that's so interesting, and I feel bad for not like picking that up the first time through.
Well, and Sprocket finding a purpose in Fraggle Rock accidentally is also really interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Doozers being able to use him, but not in a way that's detrimental to him. Like they're not using him at his expense
Yeah,
necessarily.
they're just like, you're perfect as you are. Just keep doing your thing.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, capitalizing on a bit of his, anxiety of being in Fraggle Rock, because he's not running up to the buildings and punching them down. It is a little bit of a freak out moment, crashes into them. And he feels bad at first. He does feel bad about knocking them down, but Cotterpin explains to him like, oh, no, it's fine. Like, we want you to do that.
Yeah, they're so beautiful though. I really like he and the Doozers interactions are like the highlight of the episode for me, because I love
think
when
Cotterpin is one of the I think she's the best character. So I think anytime she gets to be part of a story, it just works really, really well.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I also love when Sprocket wanders into the cave where he first sees the Doozer constructions, and he's like, whoa. And then that's a great Doozer song. It is a great theme song for the Doozers, and just like they're like truly peak like freaky cult mode in this episode, and that is a great mode for the Doozers.
Yeah, I was legitimately like, what are they gonna do to him?
He's dead meat. But you also know that they're gonna be like, we love your smashing, bud. Before we move on, I gave that one 3.5 stars, just because I got so, instead of 4, I think I voted do it out of 4, or I do it out of 5.
I think maybe 5.
This season I'm doing 4.
Okay, 4 stars. That's the rating scale. So 3.5, good.
Yeah, only because the ending made me so mad when Gobo is like, here's my bracelet, and you just know what's Doc gonna do with this bracelet.
Yeah, I did feel the trappings of the show a bit in that moment where Gobo is like, hey, Marjorie explained to me that you want me to prove to Doc that I'm real.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go with you, but I will give you this.
Why. I'll just give you the bracelet and say, surely.
Right. He could have given him like the book of the history of Fraggles.
Yeah.
Like Sprocket could have brought out that book and been like, explain this, Doc.
It's an arts and crafts project you were doing, Sprocket. You've lost your mind.
I do want to mention real quick before we move on. Love seeing Marjorie. Marjorie's great. I also love that Marjorie speaks dog, and she can speak to Sprocket. And Philo and Gunge are trying to translate using a dog phrase book, but they keep getting all the things wrong.
Yeah. Every character in this is really like operating at peak version of their characterization. It is a bit sweaty that Pa is like, we got to get rid of this clock. It's too loud.
Yeah, the Pa storyline is weird. Like the burying the clock thing, I wasn't quite sure where that was going, but the fact that it results in some, famous Muppety chaos where just everything is happening at the same time.
The chaos is good. That's true.
Works really well.
Yeah, but it is like Pa's like hung over and he doesn't want too much noise. So yeah, if it had just been Sprocket woofing, I think that would have been plenty of noise probably. But it is funny when the clock starts going off. But it's just funny, like just that setup. We got to bury this clock. It's driving me nuts.
Because Ma and Pa have to have one of their little rendezvous.
They're daily constitutional.
They have a couple of those moments in these episodes.
They have like some of the best sexual chemistry of any character I've ever seen on television. You totally buy that these two are just making passionate love every time that you don't see them on screen.
Well, in the moment, like, Junior's not smart enough to catch on to what's going on. But Pa has a pretty good cover going where he's like, me and Ma gotta go take our morning constitution, which, again, is fine. But you have Ma on the side looking super bashful and like, oh,
Yeah.
Pa, I can't believe you just told Junior that.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, oh, yeah, we're on to you.
Yep. A healthy sexual relationship.
Well, that'll bring us to the next episode that aired on January 13th, 1986. Wembley's Wonderful Whoopee Water, written by Jerry and Susan Jewell and directed by Terry Maskell. Again, in this episode, no postcard from Uncle Traveling Matt. That's 2 episodes in a row with no
Good.
postcard.
We don't need it.
And Doc is growing the tomatoes in his workshop because those grocery store prices are too dang high, Sam.
Biden's just
Biden inflation.
Yeah. That kind of cinched it for me what kind of guy Doc would be were he around today. He'd be living out on a farm, he'd be self-sufficient. He'd have one of those "Don't Tread on Me" flags.
Oh, I don't want to think about Doc that way.
It's true.
But I do love how quickly you can see Doc's plan falling apart because he just starts talking about
buy some compost. I gotta go buy some. Yeah.
And he finishes it with free food for the taking.
It is
He's
a
so
really
convinced.
It's a great Doc and Sprocket thing because as somebody who has a wife who is a gardener, like a compulsive gardener, basically loves gardening so much. Even she like 2 days into it was like, this is going to be extremely expensive and not offset any of the food that we get at all.
Yeah, adult hobbies, they got a lot of startup costs.
That's true, yeah. And then often you just don't do them, so really.
And then you just have a closet full of
Crocheting
expensive stuff that you
hooks.
bought.
Yep.
That hopefully maybe you can sell on Facebook Marketplace someday.
Yeah. But my wife does garden and grows shitloads of tomatoes. I would say the tomatoes probably get the closest to being like, okay, to buy this many, we have a ridiculous amount of tomatoes. To buy this
Right.
many tomatoes would be cost a fortune. But yeah,
I
this
feel
one
like
just
everybody I
really
know who
spoke
grows
to me.
tomatoes grows accidentally too many tomatoes.
Oh my gosh, it's fun because you can make so much tomato sauce and salsa. But
Or I just sneak over there in the middle of the night. Free food for the taking.
that's how you do it.
Yeah, he just needs to go get Ned Schimmelfinney into gardening,
Yeah,
and then he can go steal
Start
Ned's
stealing.
tomatoes.
Oh, he'd be the Fraggle to Ned's Gork.
Yeah.
He'd be bopping him on the head. Matt, you could just come over to our house and take as many tomatoes as you want, and we would say thank you for taking these tomatoes.
Well, that's less fun for me,
That's
Sam.
true.
I need to wear a balaclava and sneak over your fence in the middle
I
of the
was
night.
gonna say just like a little Hamburglar outfit, basically.
Just full camouflage.
Yeah.
Army
Oh,
crawl across your
yes.
backyard.
Get a ghillie suit.
Yeah, I'm going to be there for days without you realizing it.
Me and Rachel just like looking out the window, watching you. There he is again.
I'm in the middle of your yard in a ghillie suit.
Yeah. We're setting traps for you, but we know, we all know what we're doing. It's just a fun game we're playing.
I'm forced to survive off of tomatoes alone because I didn't bring any provisions.
Yeah, and you fell in our tiger pit.
No.
You got skewered through your leg, so you're just sitting down there.
That's how the
eating-
commitment really ends.
Yeah, eating rotten cherry tomatoes at the bottom of this pit. And I throw you a microphone down. Say, Matt, it's time to podcast.
Well, speaking of big old holes people fall in, let's get back to Wembley's Wonderful Whoopee Water. Because Red and Gobo catch Wembley listening to the rock. He hears liquid, and it sounds like Puka 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 Squeedly Boink. A timely song, and also an all-time Wembley song.
It's great. He's going wild in this song. His eyes are getting a workout.
Yeah, lots of rolling those eyes,
Uh-huh.
which I'm still confused on how that mechanism works,
Me
which I think
too.
is perfect, that I don't know.
Yeah. And I wonder why they didn't just put more moving eyes and more Muppets after this. Because it is it makes him feel so much like a living cartoon character that sometimes when his eyes are moving so much, you look at the other characters and you're like, why ain't you looking all over the place?
I think, Monkey has her eyelids that
Yeah.
that make her look sleepy and sad.
That's true. That's true.
So it's really just Gobo and Red who are just sitting there with
And
frozen
yeah,
eyes.
Red's eyes, Gobo's eyes have always bothered me because there's just something, I think there's something off about Gobo in general. I think his nose is too short and it looks like painful. He looks like a painful puppet to wear and he can't open his mouth wide enough. But then also his eyes with that back lid.
Yes.
It's just like, what are you doing here?
I think that's the difference is like Moki has eyelids, but hers will move.
Yeah.
Red, no eyelids, just bare eyeballs on top of her head.
Normal Muppet thing, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Gobo has sort of like this applied eyelid thing happening, but it doesn't change.
Yeah, and I think it maybe makes him look a little smarter or something. I'm not sure what the effect of it is, but there is something that they do, but I also don't get what they're supposed to be at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this song is great. I think it's so funny that we've never seen the camera go that far over on this set before, and it's just like obviously this set transitions into one of the cave sets, but
Right.
it makes it seem like Gobo and Wembley live with just like a billion weird creatures that are just barely right off of their living room.
Yeah, it's something I watched the first episode of the new season of Back to the Rock last night. And the biggest thing that stands out about the new series versus the old series is what they're able to do from a filmmaking point of view. There's so many close-ups and moving cameras through the scenes in Back to the Rock that it almost like it makes me wish some of these episodes were able to be filmed like the new episodes, because it is so great to have just like a super close-up shot of like Gobo waking up in the morning, followed by another close up of like what Boober's doing, and I'm like, oh, these are beautiful shots of these puppets. And so things like this, like you're saying, like, oh yeah, they just like pan the camera over a bit, and they're like, and now this thing's here.
Yeah, now
just
the little clam
feels
guys are here.
you feel the limitations of the era a bit more. But yeah, this is we find out that Wembley has discovered LaCroix.
I wrote the same thing too. I wrote, the Fraggles have discovered fizzy water, which is always an exciting moment for like older young adults. That is when you know that you're like 28 and you're like, this stuff's great. I don't need to drink soda anymore. This stuff's just like soda. And everybody younger than you is like, what on earth are you talking about? This stuff's disgusting.
But unfortunately, at first, nobody believes him about the fizzy water because it dries up as soon as he leaves to go tell everyone about it. But he finds another water spot in the rock, and this time digs much deeper, and it geysers out and lifts Wembley into the air. And Gobo tastes it and says, it tastes like a party.
That's right. That's what we drink at parties now because we're in our 30s. The Fraggles turn 30 is what this episode is.
I mean, just wait until Gobo learns you can put alcohol in these things.
Hell yeah, baby.
I think they already got caffeine in it by accident, so I think they
did. They hit a natural caffeine seam somewhere along the way.
But the Fraggles start to ration out this fizzy water, similar to Doc's setup of free food for the taking. You can kind of sense something's going to go wrong here.
Something's going bad, yeah. I love that it's spearheaded by Aunt Granny Fraggle, because that is just a very funny name. Aunt Granny.
And her little helper, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, but he's just
Fearless
around.
Something. He's the guy, he's got that big suit of armor on. He's the guy who was he was like leading the thing to save Red from that hole. But he was like useless. They just thought Fearless Felix, I think maybe his name is.
Okay.
And he just looked brave, but then wasn't. And then Gobo had to learn how to be confident again so he could save Red.
Yeah, Felix the Fearless.
That's right.
Yeah, this is only the second episode he has appeared in.
Yeah, I had to look him up because I was like, this guy, why is he wearing a big suit of armor? And then I remembered, oh yeah, that's why. He was a visual gag in an episode like 3 years ago.
Well, Wembley does hear a scary borple sound alongside the good Puka Puka, and he wants to warn everyone, but his ego takes over.
Yeah, and then it starts getting into the themes of the episode, which we'll talk about at the end. I feel like this is a very strange, the way that they hedge everything in this episode is very strange, but we'll get there eventually. But I guess this is like, okay, if it is about global warming, then this is like scientists or the oil companies who are like getting the data that this is bad and not telling anybody.
Yeah, it feels a bit like it could be oil companies is the closest that I could think of, and it does land in a very curious place that we'll get to. Before then, this is when Gobo and Red officially name the water Wembley's wonderful whoopee water. And then we also, at the same time, start to see the rock crack. And, Wembley's battle throughout this episode is ego versus doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because he tries to point out that maybe it's not a good idea to take the water, but then World's Oldest Fraggle comes in and distracts everyone
This
by
part's so funny.
revealing that he can't sleep.
Yeah.
And
Before
so
you
the
find out why he can't sleep, it's so funny that he just pops up and he's like, I can't sleep. You guys all got to sing me a lullaby.
and we get a moment where the Fraggles start to sing a lullaby. The
This is
song is
really
called
good.
Sleeping and Dreaming, parentheses, leaping and screaming.
Uh-huh.
And a little personal anecdote. Last night, watching this episode on my laptop in bed, my wife's reading next to me. Right as this song's about to start, she turns off her lamp. She's going to go to bed. And I say, hey, what a coincidence.
Oh, no.
They're starting a lullaby in this episode. So I pop out my headphones. I turn up my speakers on my laptop and say, here you go. I'm doing a nice little sweet thing for my wife. I'm going to play you a Fraggle lullaby, which works for the first 20 seconds. But then the problem is that this song does not remain a sweet lullaby because it transitions from sleeping and dreaming into leaping and screaming, a lovely song of chaotic energy that
It's
includes the
really
lines, close your mouth, I'll knock you out. Soon all your cares will be through, shouting and screaming at you.
good song.
Not
So
a
she
great
didn't-
lullaby
she
for my
didn't like
wife.
it. She didn't like it, probably.
She enjoyed the song. It did
she
not
bop
lull
you
her
one
to
in
sleep.
the mouth?
She did not. She did not follow the song's methodology.
A lot of times in Fraggle Rock, I hate to admit, sometimes I zone out a little bit during the songs, but I feel like every song in this batch, maybe with the exception of the Boober episode, I was like locked in. These were great songs.
This
And
song
song's
demands
so
your
funny.
attention.
Yeah, because you can kind of also see it coming, like, yeah, the way that the tempo just ramps up a little bit, and you're like, these guys are about to lose their freaking minds.
And they really do. Like, there's some Fraggles in there that we've like never seen before. It's just some background Fraggles.
Uh-huh.
And there's one that they keep in the center for a lot of the shots that I just don't trust. Like, he seems too intense. He's yelling about shouting at me, and I don't trust him.
There's really no other the core Fraggles are kind of the only nice Fraggles. I feel like every other Fraggle we meet, with the exception of a couple, is opportunistic and greedy and like will take advantage of any situation. So yeah, I think it's totally fair not to trust them.
Well, this is when we learned that no one can sleep because of the dangers of caffeine.
But it's
Sweet
not.
fizzy.
It's just good. It's just presented as a positive. They don't actually ever suffer any repercussions from not sleeping.
If anything, they benefit because they sort of become nocturnal, and so they can get radishes from the Gorg garden while the Gorgs are sleeping.
Uh-huh.
Gobo goes and gets his postcard while Sprocket and Doc are sleeping.
Yeah.
So they only benefit from the caffeinated part of this.
These are actually things I was thinking during the first episode because there's a through line at the beginning where they can't go get radishes, which I can't remember what the resolution of that is, but they can't go get radishes. And I thought, why don't they just go out at night and get the radishes? Because the Gorgs obviously sleep at night. And then they do, and it's like, well, they live in a cave, so why do they even have to be awake in the daytime? Why can't they
they
just
don't know what time
all
it
be
is.
like, we're going to swap what time we're awake so we can go out and do our little errands in the middle of the night, like any good tiny little creature would do.
Yeah, but as we've seen, Fraggles are a fragile species.
That's true. They can't change up their way of doing things, or they die instantly.
Yeah, like they have to sing to keep light in the caves, and if that cave goes away, they die. So
they freeze to death every now and then for some reason I can't remember.
Yeah, they have to ring a bell so they don't freeze to death.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's a pretty fragile ecosystem down there. So I don't think tampering with it is a great idea. Which I wish we would have seen more of in this.
Yeah.
Of like the caffeine starting to actually cause problems.
That feeds into the strange ending, which we'll get to. Which I will.
Can I ask though? How do these fools know what a strawberry is?
I was thinking the same thing, and then I thought, well, they know what radishes are, so they know what everything a Gorg grows. They know about. So I have to assume that Gorgs grow strawberries. Is my only thought.
I mean, maybe. It's also very odd because the slight spoilers, I guess. The first episode of the new Back to the Rock season that I also watched last night, Uncle Traveling Matt returns and brings a strawberry, which he calls a sweet radish.
Oh.
And it ends up getting lost in the Gorg garden and takes root. And they set it up like that's an ominous thing that's going to be a problem in the future.
Okay.
And so like the shows are not directly related, but it was just very interesting to see an episode where everyone knows what a strawberry tastes like, and then an episode of the new show where strawberries have never been seen before.
On the one hand, I also clocked that as weird. But on the other hand, I'm glad they said strawberry because then it's like, that stuff sounds delicious. I would love a caffeinated fizzy water that tastes like strawberry, which I'm sure exists, but
I just
sounds
picture
great.
it tasting like Red Pop. Well, the crack opens up even more as Wembley's about to get the key to Fraggle Rock. And we transition up to see what Doc is up to. He has now bought dozens of expensive sun lamps.
They have to wear
and
sunglasses in the workshop.
And he also got a fancy financial modeling program for his computer, which tells him he's going to lose $57,412.
Very accurate to the gardening experience.
Well, that's $161,000 in 2024 money, Sam.
Yeah, he's getting screwed on this construction fee he hears about later.
Yeah, spoilers. At the end of the episode, Doc wants to convert his entire workshop into a greenhouse, and the estimate is the aforementioned $57,412.
I feel like he could build like a small home for that amount of money. Definitely in the 80s he could have.
Yeah, that is a lot. $100,000 to convert your shed into a greenhouse.
Which is basically just like installing windows, I'd assume.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he decides not to do it. He knows a scam when he sees one.
He has his limits.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for a man who lives in a shed, I can't imagine he's got $100,000 just sitting around.
No, that too. He just literally can't do it.
He's a caretaker at an inn and lives in a shed.
In Canada in the 80s. So maybe he's getting paid pretty well. At least
Tell
a
me all the
living
things you know
wage.
about Canada in the 80s. Go.
Canada, I just always assume they must pay people better in Canada. But I don't know if that's really true.
It's just a land of pure imagination up there.
That's right. Yeah, Doc walks around. He picks the little flower coffee cup off of the plant on his way to work and he eats it. And then Miss Ardath pays him $25 an hour.
This is
In
quite
80s
in
money.
contrast to a lot of your Canada bashing that you've done on this podcast through the
Just
years.
because I'm jealous. That is why anybody makes fun of Canada, I feel like. Because you're just like, well.
We know you're better.
They have actual social programs up there.
Well, we get to a delightful line. I don't remember who says it. Maybe Aunt Granny or maybe Felix the Fearless. But somebody says, "How did this bottomless pit get here?"
Yeah, it's Aunt Granny. She walks up and says, "By the way, how does bottomless pit get here?"
Turns out Gobo fell in the bottomless pit, which does actually have a little bottom in it. And Wembley gets lowered down to help him up.
Yeah,
This is
another
not-
part about the theme where they don't, for like a millisecond, don't believe him that Wembley is in there. And Aunt Granny's like, if I don't see it, I don't believe it.
Yeah, this is a weird ending. I think I never expected it to go this route of
Mhm.
Gobo falling in a hole. Like, I thought maybe we were going to learn that the water they were drinking was, the well for the Gorgs, and it was going to
Yeah.
make the Gorgs sad and they felt bad or something. But really, it's just we don't learn that caffeine is bad. We sort of learn that if you take this water, there's a chance something bad might happen, but we're not sure.
Yeah.
But Wembley's going to be overly cautious and choose to not use it anyways.
Yeah, they say there's two different lines where Wembley and then I think Gobo both say, I don't know that this is causing this, but we're still going to
Right.
stop using it. I don't know that the water is the issue, which is where it gets into the territory of like, what did like Exxon write you a letter and say, you have to say that the science isn't conclusive. Why are you being so fair to these people or like this concept?
But I totally agree that I think if you're trying to make a strong stance on something with this episode, it's a weird way to end it.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, I do enjoy teaching kids that, like, if you have a suspicion that something might be harming your friends, your family, or something like that, it is maybe best to choose to not do that thing.
Yeah.
Even
if you're
though,
not positive about it.
right, there's not a direct correlation necessarily, but it's better to err on the side of safety.
Yeah. And I guess what they're trying to say also is we should be more thoughtful about this, and companies that are doing things like this should be proactive and stop doing stuff, even if we can't prove to them 100%
Right.
beyond a reasonable doubt, because we can't teleport them into the future or the past and be like, look, yeah, but that just doesn't come across exactly. It feels like hedging, but I know that that's not what they're trying to do.
Yeah, I could see a version of this episode where maybe this is the lesson learned earlier on, and there's a group of Fraggles who decide, no, I think it is worth it.
Yeah.
This fizzy water is so good.
Right.
I think we are going to drill and get this fizzy oil no matter what you say.
Yeah. And then at the end, it's like Wembley's like sitting at a big desk. He's got stacks of money. And then like all the Fraggles equally are eventually impacted by this, like from the bottom up, but they still face the repercussions of it. Like somebody
Yeah.
needed to fall in that pit and die.
You could have done it with Felix. We never see him again.
Get rid
anyways.
of Felix. Push him down the hole. Yeah.
Plus, it's a bottomless pit. There's no confirmation that he would have died. Well, what'd you rate that episode, Sam?
I give that one 4 stars because I thought it was just like really fun. I love Jerry episodes, and like Sugith mentioned, you can kind of tell who wrote what, and I feel like Jerry writes the ones that are like, like I've never seen this movie, but I assume Brazil is like this, where it's making a statement about like a big power structure in the world and how it just like stomps on people's heads, but also does it in a fun way.
I also feel like lines like "How did this bottomless pit get here?" feel like a Jerry Jewell line to me.
Yeah, totally.
Especially after watching The Cube last time, where
totally.
Jerry's one-liners always hit, even if the story around them isn't hitting as hard.
Yes.
The one-liners are always there.
The guy can think of some real good jokes for sure.
Well, then getting to our last episode that we watched this week, we got Side Bottom Blues from January 20th, 1986, written by David Young and directed by Norman Campbell. Doc comes in a cute little sailor outfit.
Yeah, I had to rewind and turn the closed captions on for this part because he has a little sailor outfit. And then Sprocket sniffs his pants. And then Doc says, they're rented sailor pants. And that's how he explains that his outfit is rented.
Yep. He says another one of Miss Ardath's brilliant marketing strategies.
But why doesn't he say, this is a rented sailor suit? Why does he call the pants out specifically?
I don't know, but I also wrote down that line because it was so bizarre.
The rented sailor pants.
Maybe he owned the shirt.
And the hat. I mean, he keeps the hat at the end.
That's true.
So either he's paying a penalty on that rental, or he had the hat, or Miss Ardath had the hat, or something. She had all of it but the pants.
She wanted him to Winnie the Pooh, and he refused.
Oh no! It was all a game to her. I love a man in uniform, said Miss Ardath, and Doc didn't get it. He's like, it must be to impress those captains.
All right, I'll go rent some pants. Oh yeah, he's pretending to be a retired sea captain to get more people to stay at the hotel. But down in Fraggle Rock, Wembley and Boober are hanging out, talking about Boober's alternative medicines.
Great thing to teach the kids. But I guess it's the only medicine they have, so,
Yeah, they can't go to Walgreens or something and get
it's
a
home
prescription.
remedies. Mm-hmm.
That's what's really the key to Fraggle Rock at the end. Uncle Traveling Matt's gonna bring back antibiotics.
And they're all gonna be like, wow, there was so much wrong with us. We didn't even know.
I found these chalky radishes. They made me feel so much better. Well, we learned during this that Wembley is allergic to bonkleberries, which, spoiler alert, will come up again.
Yep.
And I think this was the time where I realized I was like, okay, why were they talking about strawberries last time when this whole thing is about bonkleberries?
Right. That is also when it clicked to me. But, it's funner to know what they're drinking than it is to say bonkleberries and be like, I couldn't possibly imagine what that is.
I guess so.
It looks like they look like the little berries that birds eat that are on trees, and you're like,
yeah,
I would love to eat this berry, but I know I'd get diarrhea.
Well, Wembley is worried about Boober not having enough fun and suggests that he could come along while they play Follow the Leader, another, I think, too human reference.
Yeah, they could have thought of just a funner follow
just
something.
Say follow the Fraggle.
That's right. They just
say follow the Fraggle. Yep. That's fine. But we always, like, every time they play a game or like do a sport, it's like a slight twist on something that we know.
Because they can't say we're gonna play hockey.
Right. They play rock hockey.
Bizarre. Yeah. Yeah, they do say hockey anyway, though. You're right.
But it's okay because we understand, okay, this is different, but I understand enough to know what they're doing.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to do the twist and follow the Fraggle. Yes, it wouldn't ping as anything weird to you.
Right. But that's the least important part of this episode. But it did rub me the wrong way.
Yeah. I really I think one thing I liked in this was like a really strong batch of episodes, I thought, and there was a lot of fun character interactions. Like I love Wembley being like, I'm worried about you, Boober. Somebody just finally being like, Boober, you got to get out of your house, bud.
We've all been talking about this for years, and we are
Yeah.
genuinely concerned
Yeah.
about you.
But he does have fun. He has cozy fun, which is also Boober is also like 35 years old.
Well, I love that his idea of fun. He suggests to him that he could come along and be the roving medic in the game. But that's like, it's not even like, oh yeah, you'll definitely be fun enough to join in the game. It's like, you can follow us and take care of us.
Yeah,
That's
you
your level of
can-
fun.
Yeah. And then even Boober's like, maybe I'll accidentally have some fun.
Unfortunately, this is when Gobo is saying that they can't play Follow the Leader because Junior Gorg is out there, and we
The big
can't play
goof.
while that big goof is out there ruining all our fun. And Boober overhears that and assumes that he is the big goof for some reason.
Well, I mean, I could buy that because he's like, oh, we'll just play some other time when he's not around.
Yeah, and he also mentions spoiling their fun, which is something that Boober was afraid of doing. But Boober is very upset, and he goes back to his cave and wrecks everything. And he says, I'm the most unfun Fraggle in the world. I'm a waste of skin.
This part made me genuinely actually sad.
Because you thought about the Fraggles having skin?
No, I did not think about that. But I suppose
Gotta
now
think
I
about
am.
it. Yeah.
I suppose now I am. If your skin is fabric, it's still skin, you know? Doesn't mean it feels any different than just like nice and fuzzy. Cats have skin and it feels nice and fuzzy.
I guess so. But what about the parts of Boober that aren't hairy?
I've never thought of them feeling any way but felty. And that is because like that's how I assume the Muppets feel, and they're quote unquote real.
Right.
And I think they are, and the Fraggles don't know that they're Muppets, so they're also made out of Muppet material.
Well, Boober lays down for a stress nap and dreams of Side Bottom.
Yeah.
And this time he decides, you know what? I'm going to let you out.
You're right. I think he's decided that before, hasn't he? I feel like a lot of these plot points have been hit on.
Yes, but I also think that every time we see Side Bottom, it's a little different. Like, as opposed to, we see the times when Side Bottom is a separate character who he's trying to like hide so nobody else sees Side Bottom. And then in this one, we get both versions where we get Side Bottom and him separate, talking to each other, but then we also get them constantly merging and unmerging, changing which one is present.
Right.
And again, we've seen versions of this in the past, but I feel like the rules differ slightly every time we see Side Bottom.
Side Bottom also has been sinister and not sinister, and he is both in this episode as
well. I have always maintained that Side Bottom has always been sinister.
I feel like in the second appearance, when at the end they decide to merge into one being, which should have been the end of the Side Bottom arc, frankly, but that is where I think he's a little bit less like, I'm going to take over the world.
Is that the one when he freezes them so he can keep them in place forever?
I thought that was the first one, but maybe you're right. Maybe he does always have a very sinister scheme going on.
I maintain that Side Bottom is a villain. He's kind of the Tyler Durden of Fraggle Rock.
That's true. And by the end of this one, he is saying, we're going to take over the Gorg Empire.
Yeah, he takes a quick leap to just having some fun, getting some radishes to, we will rule the world.
He goes too hard for sure. It's also bizarre. So Side Bottom takes over and declares that his name is Dr. Fun. And he also has this amazing glam doctor outfit on that like changes in the real world too.
Yeah, people see Boober wearing this new fun doctor outfit, which is pretty much just like a furry doctor's coat with his little head shiny circle thing. What is that thing for?
I think it used to be like a light, like it's a light, but I think it's from like before they had lights that were that small.
Right, so it reflects light into the mouth or whatever.
You have like the light that you can position, then it reflects off the mirror into the patient's mouth. Yeah, I think
that makes sense. Yep, just call the head mirror. No fancy name for it.
It looks like if Dr. Teeth became a dentist, this is the outfit he'd have on.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, very fuzzy with the boingly head mirror on his head. He'd be such a bad dentist.
He went to dental school at least.
Yeah, but he'd hurt you, I think. He'd get too excited.
Yeah, he'd be more like Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, he would. He would discover that he liked the part where you were screaming because it's like music, kind of.
Oh, no, yeah. He's playing you like a Muppaphone.
Yeah.
just drilling into your teeth. He's like, oh, I like that tonal resonance
Yeah, he's got a
of
bunch
your
of people.
bicuspids.
Oh no, that is what would happen. If that show had a second season, they could have done like an alternate reality episode where it was like Mirror Mirror in Star Trek, but it was evil dentist.
I was say we
Dr.
could do
Teeth.
Muppets What If.
We
could still do that.
They should, yeah.
Well, we get a very random Uncle Traveling Matt postcard in the middle of this. They just come back from a commercial break, and Uncle Traveling Matt is in a kitchen discovering a whistling creature, which is a tea kettle,
Yeah.
a ringing creature, which is a telephone, and a cuckoo clock. And much like Pa Gorg earlier, he hates noise.
This one
But-
seemed like they had written it for that episode, you know? For the
It does align perfectly with that
very
episode.
odd, and it aligns nothing at all with this episode.
But his solution is just to shove cookie dough in his ears to quiet the noise.
Yeah.
And we cut back to the rock where Gobo's reading it and says, "Isn't that interesting?" And no one
nope.
is listening to him
They
at
didn't
all.
even stop what they were doing to listen to the postcard this time. It's like this is the one where the writers were like, we're gonna stop. We're just gonna bring this guy home. He can't keep going like this.
Well, back up in the Gorg world, Ma and Pa come back from picking bonkleberries.
They do actually have bonkleberries, so maybe
Yeah.
they weren't having sex this time. They don't have very
But
many
what-
bonkleberries, so
What a good euphemism.
your mother and I were picking bonkleberries.
Yeah, we were
I mean-
bonking for the last 2 hours. But their appetite is not satiated. They are going to sneak off for their regular constitution, and this is the time where it's barely subtle.
Yep.
You see Ma blushing as they go to wander off and leave Junior behind to cook the bonkleberries. And reckless Sidebottom is here, encouraging the Fraggles to still continue to play follow the leader, regardless of Gorgs or their traps or allergies. Because he says a line of, "Are you going to let a little allergy spoil everyone's fun?" And I was like, oh no, Sidebottom is truly dangerous.
Yeah, he's getting out of control. I really like the scene where he just runs out and like springs the trap, especially because it ends with him just freaking hypnotizing Junior. Like that's a power that he has always had.
Yeah, he yells at Junior saying, "Don't you want to come out and play with Dr. Fun?" And then Junior is so confused by this, confident Fraggle that he starts to have a conversation with him before Dr. Fun / Sidebottom does just fully hypnotize in a very unexpected plot point. He hypnotizes Junior Gorg, and it works. And they do a fantastic duet to a song called "Fun Is Here to Stay," which it's one of those things where these are two characters that I don't have very strong feelings towards Sidebottom or Junior Gorg really usually, but
yeah.
I don't mind them singing together.
And it's kind of a sinister song, though. He's
Yeah.
his puppet, you know?
Oh yeah, when he says "Fun is here to stay," it's not your choice.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, back up in Doc and Sprocket's world, we get to hear Doc say a delightful line, saying, "The last thing in the world I know anything about is talking to sea captains."
Yeah, pretty
Same.
accurate. I
Yeah,
suppose I also wouldn't know even the first thing to say to them about any of it.
I guess,
I don't
hey,
really know
can you
how to,
actually marry people? But Doc and Sprocket start talking through what Doc is going to do and what his welcoming speech he's going to give. And they get seasick just talking
His
about
spe-
being on a
this
boat.
part's really good. Doc and Sprocket, even in all these episodes, were really good because just the acting and like his speech is really good. He's like men of valor, and then almost puking is very good.
Something I forgot to mention and forgot to bring up when we had Sugith here. At the end of his episode, Sprocket's Big Adventure,
Oh yeah, he almost kills Doc.
after Doc doesn't believe Sprocket about the bracelet being from a Fraggle,
Or he just takes it and uses it in the plumbing and doesn't even look at it.
yeah, he turns it into a washer. He looks down and he's working on the pipes. Sprocket picks up a pipe and holds it over Doc's head for a second and then reconsiders and
Yeah.
tosses the pipe aside.
I wonder
But there
if
is a
he-
moment
yeah.
where there is blood in his eyes as he's considering offing Doc. But right in the middle of that seasickness, Doc gets even worse news because Miss Ardath calls and says, "Hey, change of plans. The party is no longer at the hotel. It's on the yacht." But back down in Fraggle Rock, Junior Gorg is delightfully singing the Fraggle Rock theme song as he's still hypnotized, believing he's a Fraggle. But Wembley is starting to have a reaction to the bonkleberries. And Sidebottom continues to not listen to him in a very frustrating way for everyone involved, saying there is no such thing as too far if you're having fun.
Yeah. He doesn't believe in medicine.
Well, Junior tastes the bonkleberry stew, and that's what wakes him up. But it
It's too
also,
hot. Hurt him.
yeah, but it also almost kills Wembley because Junior drops a bunch of bonkleberries right on his dang head.
I love on the Muppet Wiki, there's a trivia that's like, Wembley is so allergic to bonkleberries that he can't smell them or touch them without passing out. It's not revealed what would happen if he ate one. It's like, yeah, he would shit all of his guts out immediately.
Yeah, I think he would just turn inside out.
Yeah, like The Simpsons in that one, Treehouse of Horror. He'd actually be fine. He would just be inside out.
Well, unlike Boober, Sidebottom is not prepared for a Wembley allergic reaction. Doesn't have the home remedies with him like Boober would. And so, thankfully, Boober is able to fight back against the power of Sidebottom.
I didn't love this episode, but I liked this
Yeah.
part because it was really like, that's an interesting wrinkle in Sidebottom where he finally finds something that Boober is like, he finally admits that Boober isn't just a useless
Right.
waste of skin, basically. Yeah, I thought that was a really good, like a really believable moment.
Yeah, I think the only bummer is that, like a few other Fraggle Rock episodes, it is handled extremely quickly
Yeah.
and is very anticlimactic when Boober actually comes back and gives the medicine to Wembley. He's just
Yeah.
instantly better and they're gone.
And then they jump down the hole. Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't even get to see them go back to Fraggle Rock and resolve anything because it's time for Doc, who returns, tells us that he told the honest truth to the captains that he gets seasick.
Is that the honest truth, though, Doc? Is there something else that you should have told them?
I trust Doc. I think he told them the whole truth.
No, I think he knew what would happen if he told them the whole truth.
But it is interesting that this sort of becomes... It's hard to do an episode that says it's about honesty and not pretending to be something you're not when Boober is not really doing that.
No, he's it's like if the episode had been about Sidebottom pretending to be a doctor and making everybody very sick or something, then it would have made more
Right.
sense for sure. But he's not. He's just a party doctor, and he admits that the whole time.
Right. And it doesn't feel, because of the way they present Sidebottom, this doesn't feel like a choice that Boober is just making to put his friends at risk.
Yeah.
It feels like he has given over control to another part of him.
Right.
And they don't present it as like, you know, the Fraggles don't end up yelling at Boober like, Boober, what are you doing? You're killing Wembley. You have to stop this.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess I don't know what Doc would have done instead, but definitely these don't match up. And I feel like also Doc has done I just had to finally admit that I was lying. We've done that before with Doc too, I think.
Yeah. He's a liar. It happens a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, what
He's
do you
a
rate that episode,
fraud.
Sam?
2.5 stars. Not my favorite because, like you said, I don't resonate much. I like Junior Gorg just fine, but I
Yeah.
don't like a song that revolves around Junior Gorg. I just think he's a teeny bit annoying.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I thought there's a lot to like about this episode. Just not one of my favorites, but still like a good Fraggle Rock episode.
Yeah, I think it's my least favorite of the three. Mostly because of the way it ends. Like, just that wrap up is so quick.
Yeah.
That I wanted a bit more with Boober sort of talking through what happened.
Mm-hmm. But I'm always on the lookout for episodes of Fraggle Rock where the same thing happens multiple times. You know what I mean?
Right.
And none of these episodes did that.
No, that's true. Well, and Sam, it's time to check in and see if you had time to watch any non-Muppet things since the last time we recorded.
I went to see this movie called Problemista. Have you heard of this movie?
I have not.
But it's by this comedian named Julio Torres, who have you seen Together, that movie?
I have not. I don't think I've seen anything he's done.
Yeah, he's just like, he's kind of an up and coming, in a way up and coming, but also like has a very like kind of cult following comedian, stand-up comedian. He does a lot of like prop stuff, and he made this show Los Spookies, which is an HBO comedy series, which is so funny. And it's just like, it's very surrealistic. A lot of his stuff is very surrealistic. But this movie Problemista I think it's kind of autobiographical in a very abstract way, but it's about this guy who meets he's like needs a job because he's going to get deported if he doesn't get a job, and he meets Tilda Swinton, who is the caretaker of her husband is frozen because he's waiting for a cure for cancer. Her husband's Zariza, and she is safeguarding his art collection. So he helps this old lady, Tilda Swinton, Tilda Swinton aged lady, much older than him, recollect her husband's art that's kind of spread all over New York City, so they can have like one last show for him so that he can stay in the country and she can have enough money to keep him frozen. But it really is about it's about somebody of an older generation, like the generation of people who are like, why don't you just go and bring your resume to this company and see if they'll hire you? It's kind of like reconciling that point of view with the modern point of view of like everything's gig economy, nobody wants to give you a job, and it's hard to speak up for yourself because that's just how we were raised. Like people our age, definitely, who are just like, it's tough to advocate for yourself. So it's his character trying to learn how to advocate for himself is really like the through line. But it's very surrealistic, funny, cute. His character is kind of also like Pee Wee Herman in a way, because he's got like a very distinctive outfit and like a very distinctive walk and just a way of acting that reminded me a lot of it's like a very Pee Wee-y kind of movie. And also very sweet. The end made me cry. So I don't know if it's probably only playing in like smaller theaters, I would guess, unless you live in a really big city.
Right.
But I think probably will stream soon, but also worth tracking down. I got a lot. I thought it was really fun. I didn't know anything about it. I just went with Rachel to see it, and I was like, oh, I love this guy, and also it's just fun. And I'm probably gonna go see King Kong versus Godzilla. Or
Oh, dang.
how do you say the title of that movie? Godzilla X Kong? Or what?
I
Okay.
guess X. Like, do you say the X or is it like and?
And I have no
or do you
idea.
not say the X? Is
Or
it
do you
just
say
Godzilla,
Kong?
Kong, the new empire?
I have no idea. Anyway, I'm probably going to go see that tomorrow.
Well, I just watched Paddington 2 again.
Oh, wow.
Because that movie's so good. Watching it this time, one, I just loved those two movies. But it also, like, watching it again this time, I think the last time I watched it, we discussed it. And I had mentioned that Paul King should direct a Muppet movie.
Yeah.
Watching it again this time with that in mind, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, that movie could so easily be a Muppet movie.
Right.
That I just really, really want Paul King to be given the keys to the Muppet Kingdom.
Love that. Yeah, the comedy matches, the like concept of this weird little guy navigating the real world, and
the celebrity cameos.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, an evil celebrity threatening a cute little furry guy. That's just a Muppet movie. Come on.
It's just a Muppet movie. Musical numbers. Yeah. Well, before we get out of here, we got to let you know what we'll be watching next time. And next time, we continue our journey through 1986 and through season 4 of Fraggle Rock, as we head into February of 1986 with 3 more episodes titled Uncle Matt's Discovery, Junior Faces the Music, and A Tune for Two. And we'll also check out a brief clip of Jim Henson being a little awkward on the show Saturday Superstore. Him and Kermit appear on that show in February of 1986, and we've got a couple minutes of their appearance. Well, we need to thank our friend Tuna for making the music for this podcast and Cassie Wilson for singing our theme song. Don't forget, you can go to commitment.com to check out all your commitment needs. And also, hit us up on iTunes with a nice little rating or review. We encouraged that recently, and a bunch of you went and left reviews, and it's very nice. I wanted to highlight one that we just got on Wednesday, a few days ago. From I Wish I Were Named Brad is the username. And I'll read this in full. The subject is, "Oh, hello, friends." The review says, "I came into the world the same month and year as The Muppet Show, and to say that Henson..." That's where it ends. I think they were gonna say more, and maybe they accidentally hit submit early.
And to say that Henson what?
Who knows? But you know what's important, Sam? They hit the 5 stars.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Oh boy.
But if you'd like to leave a review, we appreciate that. Or if you just want to reach out and let us know what you think of the show, you can do that by emailing mail@commitment.com. And you can follow us everywhere on social media at Commitment Pod. And you can follow me at Matthew Gatos.
And I'm Sam Schultz.
And as always, keep believing.
Keep pretending.